Blog Talk Radio.
Oh, it's time to get real. Oh, yeah. It's a new experience. Spirituality. Yeah, keep your ears open for this one now. Spirituality. You got a question for RLN? Spirituality. Yeah, it's time to get some answers, baby. Spirituality. Oh, now we getting real. Getting real. Spirituality. Yeah, it's time to get down. Yeah, you're gonna feel good now. Real good. Now, that's what I'm talking about. Time to get real.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Reality Spirituality Radio. I'm your host, Happiness Specialist. That's right, that's what I said. Happiness Specialist, Inner Peace Practitioner, Oracle, and more importantly, just a student. I'm no different than anybody else, other than the fact I've been studying this thing called happiness, researching, studying happiness for 45 plus years. What? Is that all you're doing? What kind of crazy research is that? Who's interested in that? Well, when I was younger, you remember blowing out candles on your birthday cake and making a wish. I always wished for the same two things. I wanted to live to my potential, and I wanted to be happy. And so, you know, when you ask, you always get answers. How can I experience more happiness? Is it just sometimes when life is good? Or can I maintain and sustain this energy, this vibration of happiness all the time? And let me be very, very clear. It is an energy. It is a personal vibration that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a word. Some people don't like the word happy. Some people rather the word joy. But it's not the word. It is the vibration. And the vibration and the energy of, thank you for asking, contentment, peace, balance, that vibration of satisfaction, the energy of satisfaction, that the present moment is enough. My definition of happiness is the ability to vibrate an energy of peace regardless of what happens and regardless of what doesn't happen. The ability to vibrate an energy of peace. The ability to vibrate the energy of contentment regardless of what happens. That's the key. Is it possible? Yes. And I'm here to share how. The good news is this happiness, this energy, this vibration of contentment is a practiced skill, like any other skill, from being a musician, an artist, an athlete, a speaker, a landscaper, a painter, a chef. It's a practice. And then what do you practice? And by the way, if you want to speak with me live, you know, I always just get shot out of a cannon. If you want to speak with me live, the number to call in is area code 646-564-9619. Again, area code 646-564-9619. That's on Blog Talk Radio. And you can also watch me live. What? Watch me live on my YouTube channel, which is Rebecca Norrington. Live. She's live on the YouTube channel. So there's two. Oh, and then also if you are listening on Noom Vibe, just ask to join the stage. You know how we do this. Okay, let's get back to just a brief introduction. Also, now that I got you here captive, my latest book, I'm holding it up, it's called Programmed for Unhappiness. Programmed for Unhappiness, Exposing the Untold Truth. It's on Amazon, it's on Lulu, Barnes & Noble, it's all over the place. But Amazon is a quick one, too. Anyway, Program for Unhappiness, Exposing the Untold Truth. And in this book that took, a few years to assemble, I list 55 program behaviors that have been proven to subtract from your contentment, your happiness, your joy, all of it. 55. There's really 56, but 55 is my number. 55, 56 program behaviors, and I'm even adding more. And so what happens if you are serious or committed? Let me scratch the serious. If you are committed to experiencing more of this lightness, experiencing more of this consciousness on a higher level, meaning that it doesn't matter what happens. I'm living in a state. Another practice is to practice living in a state of neutrality. Practice living in a state of neutrality, which means I don't care what hits you, what news you hear, what circumstance you find yourself in. The state of living in a state of neutrality, knowing that whatever is happening, there's no judgment. This is good, this is bad. That's another practice. But back to the 55 program behaviors. When I say happiness is a practice skill, happiness, inner peace, contentment, they're all practice skills. And just like any other skill, the more you commit to the practice, the better the results. This is simple. 1 + 1 = 2. The more you commit to the practice, the more you value, the more you think that this is important. Is it important to vibrate an energy of contentment for most of the time? Let me throw in all of the time. Is that important to you? Well, it's important to me. And so the question that you ask is, are you committed? And I have to share one of the reasons why I don't have a lot of friends, and one of the reasons why people go running the opposite way when they see me. I'm just joking now. It is the practice, and the practice is where is the practice? Found in the mirror. That's right. When I've been teaching these classes, The Truth About Happiness, for over 15 years, and in California, I taught them in California, in Arcadia, California. I taught them in Roseburg, Oregon, at the college, UNCC, or was it UCC? And anyway, there's only one college in the city of Roseburg, and then now at UNLV in Las Vegas. So it's the same material. It is the same, not a theory, it's the truth. So when you practice eliminating these program behaviors one by one, and I have them listed in the book, level 1, level 2, level 3, you practice eliminating these behaviors, program behaviors, you will, I guarantee, experience more contentment. And the topic of today's show is one of the biggest challenges that I have encountered, and that is letting go of the stories. I've talked about stories there's been so many shows about stories, but I'm really going to narrow it down today. When I find myself feeling any kind of way that isn't balanced or connected or content, feeling different than that, most of the time, 99% of the time, there is a story, or there's more than one story in my head that I am focusing on, listening to, consumed with, or even giving it attention. When I know the world loves stories. People cannot stop telling their stories. The problem with sharing a story, and this is only to do with happiness. This is only to do with a person's Contentment. I'm not talking about anything else other than a personal vibration of contentment. The stories, I'm 68, don't tell anybody. Did I just say that out loud? Yes, I did. 68, and the stories and the thoughts have not stopped yet. Even with all of what I practice, I still get the stories. I still get the bad news. I still get the perspective that isn't contented. There is a spiritual teacher. Her name is Byron Katie, BYRONKATIE, Byron Katie. You can Google it. Of course, I could have had everything pulled up, but I did not. Let's see. She does this. It's called her focus. It's called the work. So all of her teaching. Oh, here it is. Yay! I found it. Thank you, Universe. Thank you. So her theories are centered around these 4 questions, and ask yourself these questions every time you feel. Let's see, what's a good word? Not connected. How's that? You are always connected, but the feeling and the sense of I'm lost. Now what? That struggle where the ego says, "Oh, now you're in a quandary. Feeling like you're in quicksand, feeling like you're stuck." And that stuck thing is another program. That kind of feeling. So you ask yourself, and you hear all of these stories, and you ask yourself, number 1 question, is it true? Can the stories, can the thoughts, can all of that chatter in my head, is it true? Are these stories true? And you answer either yes or no. Number 2, the second question, can you be absolutely sure that they're true? So the questions, when you have all of these thoughts, all of these stories, those doom and gloom stories, when you have all of those thoughts in your head, what do? My practice is to, and I've said it a million times, is to observe and witness the stories as opposed to identifying with them. When I talk about stories, I'm really focusing on, in the moment, what do you do when the ego says, "Oh, now I'm in a fog," or "Now I'm stuck," or "Now I'm feeling sad," or whatever label you want to throw on it. It's the opposite of feeling content. Those times, the practice is simple. Number 1 is acceptance of however you're feeling for whatever reason the ego throws at you. Number 2, the practice is knowing, believing, trusting that this feeling, whatever it is, no describing it, but whatever that feeling is going to pass. Again, if you want to speak with me live, the number to call in is, I have a few people in the queue, is area code 646-564-9619. Again, area code 646-564-9619. And also you can see me live on YouTube. Hi. On my YouTube channel, Rebecca Norrington. Okay, and if you're listening on Noon Vibes, you can just ask to join the show. I love people's input, comments, disagreements. I love all of it, so you're all welcome to join. And questions and or comments and or statements. Okay, so so getting to another practice of what to do when you're filled, where you're consumed with all these stories. Number one is it true? Number 2, can you absolutely know that it's true? How do you know that whatever you're believing, the story is true? Number 3, how do you react? What happens when you believe those thoughts and when you believe those stories? What happens? What's the feel? anxious, stiff, irritated, pensive? What's the feeling when you believe the stories and the thoughts that the ego authors? And and the fourth question is, who would you be without the thought? What would you be? Who would you be without your thoughts? Who would you be without your stories? Ever thought about that? Eliminate all the stories, and then what? And then what happens? Who are you without your stories? And the only reason why I'm asking that question, well, there's more than one reason, but one of the reasons why I'm asking that question is just to share this practice of being aware. Awareness is the work. The self-awareness is the work. So the practice is to remain and be aware. I mean, I'm aware when these stories happen in seconds. In seconds. The stories about, let me give you an example of a story. Let me see. Hold on a second. Let me come up with a story that was just recent. Okay, hold on. There's so many. I'm just trying to pick out some. I'll just give you an example from my son. And, oh, by the way, my son and I have a show every Saturday morning. It's a live show. It's called Mother and Son Making Sense Out of Nonsense Plus More. Mother and Son Making Sense Out of Nonsense Plus More. It's a live show every Saturday, 9:15 Pacific time, and it's on my YouTube channel. Yay! Let's get back to the stories and the fairy tales. The reason why I am stressing this, the reasons why I come back to this stories over and over and over again. Think about it. If it wasn't for the stories, which are all in the past, and, got some future stories too, if it wasn't for the stories, if you were able to live with a silent mind, your mind is silent, the voice in the head is quiet, you can hear a pin drop. Have you ever thought about if you could just live with a silent mind in the present moment, how the journey would be different? And going back and forth, and let me share another strategy, another practice that I use to silence the mind. When it just won't shut up. One of the things that I said, and I said it before, but it bears repeating. So I have a lot new, and welcome to all you new listeners and new followers, or scratch the followers, new audience. How about that? Just a new audience. Someone said the other day, I don't like to call people followers. I just call them leaders. I don't like that. Yeah, followers, because we're just an audience, Anyway, what was my point? Oh, this is a practice. Try this. See if it works. Whenever you have a thought, an unwanted thought, or an unwanted story, you know the difference. Whenever you have those thoughts, ask the mind, ask the ego, ask the person, the human, ask them for another perspective. Have you ever asked the ego for another perspective? Have you ever asked your mind to, can you give me another way of looking at this? Can you give me another way of looking at it where my energy is going to be lighter? Can you give me another way of looking at the same situation, the same challenge, but I'll feel light, better? I don't want to use the word better. Lighter, more aware, more consciousness. Can you give me another perspective? And watch and wait for the silence. The ego the mind is not going to have another perspective other than the one that it comes up with. Just one. Just one perspective of bad news after bad news. It is one of the things that the ego is predictable. It's predictable. It is easy to dissect. It is easy to peep out the agenda. And I say my ego, my mind's agenda is to make me this entity this what I'm in. Now I'm getting a little bit too complicated. Make me feel, number one, that I am the ego. That is who I am. I am the ego. Number two will also is this. That something needs to change. This isn't. I'm not accepting this situation exactly the way it is. Something needs to change, and it needs to change now. That voice that has suggestion after suggestion. That voice that is consistently coming up with problems after problems. You know the voice I'm talking about. And again, I haven't been able to silence it. But I can ask the questions, and I can say that I know your agenda. Back to the living in a fairy tale. And this is all my perspective. Let me just come out. I usually say this at the beginning of the show, but all I'm here doing is to offer a different perspective. I'm not here saying I'm right about everything, even though I think I am. I'm right about everything, just on this topic. Right about everything, but just offer a different way of looking at it, looking at the same situation. And that's all it is. When I say once upon a time, watch out for the stories living in a fairy tale, either, and I'm using myself as an example again, either I am living inside my head, stuck in the head, stuck with the stories, stuck with the feelings, stuck with the thoughts. Either I'm living there, or I'm living and I'm enjoying and I am present in the present moment. In the present moment, when I am fully, and you too, are fully in the present moment, there are no buttons, there are no triggers, there's nothing about the past that's going to come up. I'm living every moment new and fresh and clean of a judgment, clean of an expectation, clean of anything that remotely is going to be in the future. This practicing living in the present moment is no joke. You want to know what success is? If you ask me, it's the ability to live and stay in the present moment. That's success. Can you imagine living and staying and remaining in the present moment until the end? Talk about heaven on earth. Present moment means no past. And if I'm not in the past, guess what? There's no judgments. All judgments are from the past. So getting back to the stories, and either you are living inside the head of the stories and the thoughts, and I know I keep saying it over and over because this is a monumental hurdle. And if the stories do not stop, and if the thoughts, and if the thoughts do not end, then the second best thing is to know what to do with them when they happen. Number one, accept. Number two, observe and witness. Observe and witness them. Number three, nothing that's told, nothing unless it's universal, and you can feel the difference, is the truth. So it's not the truth. So why would you be swayed, persuaded, moved by, focused on any story that's not the truth? And those goes for stories in the head. Now, anyone else want to speak with me live? You can call in. The number is, there's a few people in the queue, and you just press the number 1 if you want to speak with me live. The number to call in is area code 646-564-9619. Again, area code 646-564-9619. And I'm live on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Rebecca Norrington. And come on, Noom Vibe, ask to join the stage. Let's go. Let's have a conversation. What do you think about? Because, listen, I'm not the only one that has these stories in my head. What do you think about letting go of the stories? What do you think about who are you without the stories? I mean, listen, I've talked to people. I've been interviewed. I've interviewed other people, and it's all about the story. And I get it. The story may be a hook, maybe a introduction, brief introduction. So can you tell the story? Can you tell your life story with also, I'm going to challenge, with also a spin on how you grew or what you learned from this particular circumstance, from this particular challenge? Can you share your story with the lesson of how you grew or how your awareness grew or how your consciousness expanded? Can you tell a story like that? And let me give you an example. I'll give you an example. If you've listened to me, in 2018, after my mother died, I found out 2 weeks later that she gifted the family house to her handyman. Now, after 2 weeks of this, especially what I practice, after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I was able to laugh. I mean, that's funny. Happiness specialist, mother dies, and gives the family house, not to the happiness specialist, but to the handyman who I barely know. This is so that's a story. That's a story. It happened. That's a story. But here we go. But what that taught me was, number 1, if I'm claiming to be a happiness specialist, and I am, number 1, what that taught me, it wasn't the mother disinheriting me. It wasn't the handyman. It wasn't the attorney. There are 3 people I could blame. There is no blame. The reason why all of that happened is because it was a universal. It's part of my destiny. It's part of what was supposed to happen to me. When I say to me, I'm using air quotes here. If you're watching me on YouTube, you can see I'm using air quotes. But let's get back to it. What was I supposed to learn? Let go of all expectations. 0 expectations of owning a family home. Number 2, letting go, eliminating attachments. All attachments subtract. I don't care if it's a material attachment or it's a physical attachment to a human being, to another human. All attachments subtract from contentment. Blame, attachments, expectations. What else? Oh, it's 2024. I did get the house back after a year and a half and $120,000 later of legal fees. However, can you feel the energy behind me telling the story? The other thing that I needed help with, that I needed more practice, is patience. So here we go. 6 years later, it's going to be 6 years in October. What is it? Let me see, 18, 19, 21, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, 6 years in October. I had my fingers up. That's how bad I am. I had my fingers up. Who needs a calculator when you can have fingers, when you can use your fingers? But backing up to patience. 6 years later, I'm in the middle of appealing a complaint in state court. Yeah, state court. Patience, letting go of expectations, letting go of attachments, letting go of blame. And here we go. The other practice is trusting that whatever happened and how it happened for a divine reason. Now, last week I actually attended a church service in Los Angeles. It was with Jesse Lee Peterson. I don't know if you know who Jesse Lee Peterson is, but he's an interesting fellow, and this is my second time attending his church service. And he questioned me on this when I said everything is in divine order, and because he asked the audience questions. And he said, well, what is divine? What does divine mean? And instead of me explaining it, when I said divine, I'm thinking everybody knows what divine means. I know I'm getting off the point for a second, but the point is everything is in divine order. Everything is in order. You can't look out into nature and not find order. It is in order. But do you know that? Do you trust that? Do you believe that? Do you surrender to that? Or do you surrender to, meaning, are you okay with everything, and I don't mean one thing, two things, everything that happens? Are you okay with the way life is unfolding? It's either a yes or a no. And I'm talking about yesterday, and I'm talking about, are you okay with the way that life has unfolded for you? Yes or no? And it came to a point for me that I realized it's not my will. I'm not making any of this happen. I'm not stopping it. I'm not preventing it. I'm not sabotaging it. I don't have any blocks. This journey, this life is a life by design from God, universe, source, whatever you want to label the creator. Now what? The challenge of letting go of stories, and I'm going to give. I didn't use this. This isn't my analogy. This is Moji's analogy. And if you haven't listened to Moji, if you haven't gone on YouTube and searched for Moji, Mooji, spiritual teacher, beyond. He's on the same. He's in the same category as Dr. David Hawkins. I'm going to throw in Eckhart Tolle, but Moji is beyond. And so one of the things that he shares is recognizing and knowing the difference between your human entity, the human self, and the higher self. The human self and the higher self. And presence is always there. And the ego is always there also. Who are you identifying with? When you identify with the ego, the stories cannot come quickly enough. The stories, the explanations, the justification, the evidence, all of it just seems so real. It makes sense. I'm feeling upset. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling depressed because I just got the news that you follow the programming. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling giddy. I'm feeling light because, and it's usually some kind of story that follows. And I'm here to share that. I'm here to say that let go of the stories being a reason as to why you're feeling a certain way. It's just not the truth. One of my other teachers, his name is Guy Finley. he's an interesting fellow. And one of the things that I've taken from his teachings are, which is very true, the feelings are real. The why is the lie. The feelings are real. The why is a lie. And that just goes back to the stories that say, why am I feeling this way? Going all the way back to the beginning, to the topic of this show, is once upon a time, if you are not able to separate and to distinguish between you and your higher self, you and the present. When I say you, I'm talking about the person, the ego, that critical voice, the mind. I'm talking about that entity. And when you are not able to distinguish between the two in real time, I'm snapping my fingers. Oh, I can still snap my finger. Let's see. One hand is easier to snap than the other. And where did my snap go? Okay, my snap is good on this one, but now in this hand, it's not even a snap, it's a slap. I digress. Back to the point. The distinction between the entity that tells a story, explaining, justifying, is the entity that I question, scratch that question, that I know is not sharing the truth. And with that, now hold on a second, let me see, hold on. Let me look at my notes. Hold on, let me drink water and look at my notes. Can I do two things at once? Actually, I'm doing three things. I'm talking. No, I can't talk and drink water at the same time. Hold on. Back to the topic. Once upon a time, living a fairy tale. So you are either living in your head or living this life in the present moment. Head or the present moment. And you can feel the difference once you practice and get a little inkling of how that present moment feels. Ask for more. How do I experience more of this, universe? How can I live more in the present moment? That's the key. Okay, no one wants to share. Okay, let's see. Anybody in the queue? Press number 1, area code 646-564-9619. Noon Vibe, come on, join the stage. Talk to me, or not. And with that said, I am going to close it out. I missed 2 weeks of shows. I realized that traveling, it was just traveling on a Sunday, coming home on a Sunday. But I'm back now. Anyone else want to say, or on Noon Vibe, come to the stage? If not, I'm going to close it out. Program for unhappiness. I heard from a couple of people who are life coaches, counselors, and they said, I'm holding it up right now. Program for unhappiness. It's on Amazon, and I said, what did I say? Oh, one of the comments was, well, if I gave this book to any of my clients or people that I counsel, I'd be out of a job. This book lists Program for Unhappiness, Exposing the Untold Truth, lists 55 program behaviors, and then I also list 26 behaviors that are not programmed that have been proven to add to your happiness and contentment. And again, happiness, inner peace, contentment are all practice skills. Let me see what's in the book here. Let's see, where am I? Oh, this is a chapter. Listen to this chapter. Now you know why I don't have friends. I'm offended. This is chapter 6. I'm offended. So what are you, and the word you is underlined. I'm offended. So what are you going to do about it? I love coming up with chapter titles. I'm offended, so what are you going to do about it? And I start off by saying you will need a seatbelt for this chapter. Getting or being offended is a deep-seated program used to manipulate and control others. Did I say that out loud? When you change your behavior, and I underline your, when you change your behavior, you will never be offended again. Think about it. Who's more powerful, the person who cannot be offended or the person who is offended by words, behavior, people, symbols, signs, flags, statues, etc.? In case you haven't figured it out, the answer is clear. The higher your energetic vibration, i.e. love, peace, and contentment, the more you are immune to being offended. And if you want to debate that fact, don't bother. I'm such a don't bother. I love that. Don't bother. You read my encounter with Walter O'Brien earlier in this book. I was labeled toxic, delusional, and selfish. I was told that I contributed zero to the planet. I was told I practically wasted 35 years of my life studying and pursuing this delusion called happiness. But nothing that Mr. O'Brien said to me or about me was offensive or hurtful. Absolutely nothing. When I say happiness is a practice skill, contentment is a practice skill, it is a practice. And all I'm sharing with you, my dear audience, is what to practice. And that is eliminating. The first part of the practice is to eliminate the program behaviors that have been proven to subtract from peace and or contentment, and then practice adding the behaviors that add to your happiness. And what are those? Thank you for asking. I'll name a few since I have you here, captive audience. Non-program behaviors that add to inner peace, contentment, and happiness. So the second part of the practice is I just scratched the inside of my nose was itching. The second part of the practice is a persistent fervor that cultivates and establishes proven behaviors that indisputably add to inner peace and contentment. And those are prioritizing happiness, inner peace, and contentment, prioritizing over any other need or desire, choosing peace at all moments, practice living consciously by becoming self-aware in all moments, surrendering without resistance, starving and humbling the ego, not identifying with the ego, recognizing the difference between your unconscious ego and your higher self. You see, it's the same message. Detach from people, outcomes, detach from thinking you know what's best. Who knows what's best? If it's happening, that's what's best. Discovering and being yourself without shame, being okay and at peace with uncertainty, practicing trust, choosing your perspective, choosing your focus, staying out of everybody else's business. Ooh, that's a tough one. How many of you out there are really paying attention to what other people are doing and what they're saying and why they're saying it and pointing the finger and making judgments and finding fault? I used to do that all the time. I always knew what was wrong with someone else. Witness more. Identify less. Practice patience. Celebrate your growth. Knowing that, believing that, knowing that time is an illusion. And there's so many different dimensions. I mean, there's different dimensions, different universes all at the same time. I mean, there's there's a lot to this life, and then there's also a lot of meaningless to it. I mean, one of the things that Moji says, which is one of my favorites, he says, can you write down who you are? Can you describe who you are, everything you are, on the back of a postage stamp? Can you fit everything that you are, your description, all of it, on the back of a postage stamp? That's the point. Well, I am going to call this a wrap up. And again, Reality Spirituality is heard every Sunday, 9 a.m., and every Saturday I do a live show with my number one and only son, Mother and Son Making Sense Out of Nonsense, plus more, Saturday, 9:15 live, Pacific Standard Time on YouTube. And that's the end of today's show. Unless someone wants to speak with me on Noon Vibe, well, that's the end of the show. Thank you for listening. Every Sunday morning you'll hear me live, unless I'm traveling or something else is going on, or unless I'm not inspired. But usually 99% of the time I'm inspired to share with you. Sunday mornings, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. My YouTube channel is Rebecca Norrington. My website is RebeccaNorrington.com. Follow me on Twitter at RL Norrington. LinkedIn, my Instagram handle is Reality Spirituality. And, I used to say my YouTube channel is a work in progress, but I'm getting a lot more videos on it. So a lot more subscribers. Thank you for subscribing. Like and subscribe. My first book, Reality Spirituality, The Truth About Happiness, can be purchased on Amazon. And I've collaborated with a couple of books, but the latest book, the one that just came out in May, is called Program for Unhappiness, Exposing the Untold Truth. Here it is. I'm holding it up. And in that book, I list the 55 program behaviors that you will want to eliminate one by one, or not. And until next week, my dear audience, I want you to remember who you are. You are a physical extension of the universe, your conscious energy, which is always evolving, always changing, always growing. Love is patient and love is kind. Be patient and be kind to yourself by accepting yourself in every moment. Be your own best friend. Remember, you are conscious energy having a human experience. You are more than your name, your gender, your titles, your accomplishments, your culture. You are more than all of that. And remember, you cannot have a happy ending to an unhappy journey. This is about the journey. You've been listening to Reality Spirituality Radio with yours truly, happiness specialist, global happiness specialist, Rebecca L. Norrington. Happiness is a practice skill, and I promise you, the more you practice, the more peace you're going to find, and your experience in every moment reflects on what you practice. Have a conscious week. Thank you for listening.
Oh, it's time to get real. Oh, yeah. It's a new experience. Reality Spirituality. Yeah, keep your ears open for this one now. Reality Spirituality. You got a question for RLN? Reality Spirituality. Yeah, it's time to get some answers, baby. Reality Spirituality. Oh, now we get real. Reality Spirituality. Yeah, it's time to get down. Reality Spirituality. Yeah, you're gonna feel good now. Real.